Greetings travelers, my name is Dr. Johnathan Bandai Namco, and I'm here to take you on a journey across the vast world of anime crossover games, the video game subgenre that brings together anime series from across all different franchises into one package. We'll encounter ancient artifacts, long forgotten relics, tourist traps, and even figure out clues for what the future may hold. This is the weird world of anime crossover games. Our first stop will serve as our introduction to this new world, that being the infamous tourist trap, Jump Force. When I say anime crossover game, I bet most people will instantly think, what is this guy talking about? And the majority of people who actually know what I'm talking about will probably think of Jump Force, a fighting game released in 2019 to celebrate Shonen Jump's 50th anniversary, bringing together characters from across 16 different manga series. Now, Jump Force is certainly a dead horse, something I definitely don't like to beat, but I still think it is the perfect starting point for a foray into the world of anime crossover games, as it features a lot of commonalities for the genre. Jump Force brings together characters from across various series from Weekly Shonen Jump. The Shueisha-owned manga publication began some of the most popular anime out there. A lot of anime crossover games follow this trend, featuring series and characters from the same publication, Shonen Jump in this case, but other examples include Weekly Shonen Sunday and Weekly Shonen Magazine. This happens mainly for two reasons, the biggest being licensing. Licensing is a big deal when it comes to anime crossover games. Rights holders and IP owners for each series need to sign off on their inclusion in these games, so keeping the series under one roof makes things a little easier. Now that doesn't mean we won't still run into licensing issues. We'll get to more of that later. The other reason behind why these games stick to one publication usually have to do with the game's inception itself. These crossovers, Jump Force being a prime example, are more often than not used as marketing tools to promote special events or anniversaries, such as Jump Force releasing for Shonen Jump's 50th anniversary. As we'll see on the rest of this journey, a lot of games will fall under this same trend. Now let's stop delaying the inevitable. Jump Force sucks, dude. I've already talked about Jump Force at length, so let's run through the spark notes here. Jump Force was a 3D arena fighting game released in 2019, which around this time, many anime game fans were already feeling arena fighter fatigue with the overabundance of arena fighters releasing in the previous years. However, that didn't stop Jump Force from garnering massive hype prior to its release. Seeing as it was a crossover of some of the most popular anime series out there, such as Dragon Ball, Naruto, and One Piece, it's not very surprising that many were looking forward to its release. And when it did finally release on February 15th, 2019, it was a commercial success, going on to sell over 5 million copies in its lifetime. But commercial success sure doesn't equal critical success. Jump Force was, rightfully, panned for a number of issues. Its story mode was full of janky animation, endless loading screens, and lifeless storytelling. Its gameplay was shallow and got repetitive fairly quickly, but I believe the game's biggest sin was that it just wasn't a faithful crossover, especially for Shonen Jump's 50th. Jump Force opted for this edgy, realistic art style, which as I know some of you will point out, well actually, this was done on purpose because the story mode is about these characters entering the real world. Yes, I am aware, and you do realize that the developers didn't have to tell that story, right? Seeing these realistic depictions of iconic anime characters is really off-putting. A lot of characters end up looking incredibly uncanny, almost like they're just off-brand action figures. And especially for series that are meant to be vibrant and full of life, the decision to hire this man instead seems pretty conflicting. The prevailing theory I've seen that I personally see a lot of merit in is that publisher Bandai Namco was looking to appeal to mainstream Western audiences. The art style, tone, direction all feel very reminiscent of superhero blockbusters like entries in the MCU, which were huge with audiences in the West at the time. This theory is also supported by the character roster. Jump Force only features 40 characters from 16 different series, with the most popular mainstream series like Bleach, Dragon Ball, Naruto, and One Piece, all taking up roster slots by having 6 or 7 characters each. The rest of the roster is mainly full of other mainstream battle shonen like Hunter x Hunter, My Hero Academia, and JoJo's. There are a couple of deep cuts here and there like City Hunter, but the vast majority of characters here are ones that Western audiences would know. It makes the full package feel less like a celebration of Shonen Jump and more of a corporate product that checks the boxes of what's popular. Jump Force would go on to be delisted from all digital storefronts in February 2022, 3 years after its initial release. Its delisting mainly has to do with licensing issues. Bandai's licensing deals with Shueisha would have been expiring around this time, and Jump Force, after its initial hype, wasn't pulling in enough revenue to really make renewing these licenses a viable business option. Jump Force is probably one of the most well-known anime crossover games out there, mainly due to its faults. So let's dig a little deeper and take a look at Jump Force's predecessor to see what Jump Force should have been. J-Star's Victory Versus is another 3D arena fighting game. It was released originally on March 19, 2014 in Japan, and then in the US and Europe in 2015. It was meant to celebrate Weekly Shonen Jump's 45th anniversary. Despite receiving generally positive reviews, it does have a handful of flaws, such as its clunky and awkward 2v2 gameplay and its repetitive story mode. This should all be sounding pretty familiar right now. But where J-Stars differs from Jump Force is that it's actually a charming celebration of Shonen Jump's history. It feels like a proper crossover. It features 52 characters from 32 different series, double the number represented in Jump Force. The most characters per series in J-Stars is One Piece, with only 4 characters, leaving space in this roster for more series and specifically deeper cuts. J-Stars doesn't just appeal to mainstream fans, it properly celebrates Shonen Jump's history with series like Kochikame, Lucky Man, and Dr. Slump. And not only is its character roster better, but tonally it's not an edgy, dark, drab mess. While I do have some issues with the graphical style, you can't deny the game's charm, especially with its in-game character interactions. J-Stars is what a crossover game should be. It's a true celebration, which, while yes, it serves as a marketing tool for Shonen Jump's IP, it is ultimately still a proper celebration of the publication's history, and not just a corporate product devoid of fan service and faithfulness to the source material. This game is a prime example of what makes not only a good game, but a good crossover game. Great Scott! Is that an ancient scroll? Let's take a quick detour here and check out some of the earliest known Shonen Jump crossover games. The very first Shonen Jump crossover games were a series of 2 RPGs released exclusively in Japan on the Famicom Jump Hero Retsuden, and its sequel, Famicom Jump 2, Saikyo no Shichinen. Hero Retsuden was released on February 15, 1989 for Shonen Jump's 20th anniversary. Its story features an original protagonist setting out to recruit 16 different Shonen Jump heroes. Jump 2 was released 3 years later on December 2nd, 1991, for, I don't know, Shonen Jump's 23rd anniversary. This time, there's no original protagonist and only features 7 main characters. I admittedly haven't played much of these, mainly because they're both only available in Japanese. There are fan-made English patches out there if you'd like to try them out, but I'm not much of an RPG guy. While the Famicom Jump games are widely known ancient artifacts, an even more obscure ancient title would be Cult Jump. Cult Jump was a Game Boy game released exclusively in Japan on September 10th, 1993. It's a trivia RPG game. You need to climb your way through the Jump Tower to save the King of Jump. Along the way, you battle enemies by answering questions about different Shonen Jump series. It is also only in Japanese, and I don't know of any English patches, but I was able to beat a whole level by just spamming random options. So that's pretty cool. But let's get back to Shonen Jump's actual worthwhile crossover titles with their widely respected platform fighters, and Battle Stadium Dawn. Jump Superstars is a 2D platform fighter released on the DS exclusively in Japan on August 8th, 2005. It often finds itself compared to Smash Bros, but it has a number of its own unique mechanics that both set itself apart from other Smash clones, as well as lean into the manga aesthetic. It takes full advantage of the DS's dual screens, with the top screen featuring the battle itself, and the bottom screen featuring a customizable grid of manga panels called Koma. You're able to unlock different Koma and rearrange your grid, each Koma offering a different effect when tapped, from summoning support characters to giving yourself a temporary boost. It's a very unique mechanic that feels like Weekly Shonen Jump. I really enjoy its inclusion here. And beyond just the mechanics, the roster is great too, with 27 series represented in total with 34 playable characters. And much like J-Stars, you get a good mix of both deep cuts and popular series. Despite not being released specifically for an anniversary, Jump Superstars feels much more like a celebration of Weekly Shonen Jump than Jump Force does. But wait, it gets even better. Jump Ultimate Stars is a sequel to Jump Superstars released on the DS exclusively in Japan on November 23rd, 2006. It largely plays the same as its predecessor, with a couple of gameplay changes, such as new moves and transformations. You can also now upgrade your characters to unlock new customizable options and Koma. The roster has also been expanded upon with 41 represented series in total, and now 56 playable characters. If I had to cite one game as the definitive Shonen Jump crossover game, then I think it would have to be Jump Ultimate Stars. There are even English patches available, so I definitely suggest checking it out. But we can't forget about our final Shonen Jump crossover game, which is yet again another platform fighter. Battle Stadium Dawn is a platform fighter released on the GameCube and PS2 exclusively in Japan on July 20th, 2006. The Dawn in the title stands for Dragon Ball, One Piece, and Naruto, the three series that are represented here. I've seen this idea thrown around that should have been called Bond and included Bleach 2, and I think that would have been pretty neat. But regardless, Battle Stadium Dawn is technically a Weekly Shonen Jump crossover. It wasn't released for any special reason, and is less of a celebration of Shonen Jump and more of a party game that happens to cross over three Shonen Jump series. I say it's a party game because the mechanics here aren't very competitive. The main concept that sets itself apart from other platform fighters is this health system, where everyone fights for control over one health bar in a tug-of-war fashion. Dealing damage forces enemies to drop orbs, collecting orbs increases your share of the health bar. It's certainly a health system. Battle Stadium Dawn is a fine enough game. It's got some charm like the opening movie, but I don't think I'd put it in a serious conversation about crossover anime games. Egad! Is that what I think it is? It is. An anime crossover game that doesn't fall under my strict guidelines for what counts as an anime crossover game. Let's set the record straight here and now on what constitutes an anime crossover game. Much like how for a character to qualify for Smash Bros, they must originally be from a video game, for an anime crossover game to qualify as an anime crossover game, the included series must originally be an anime or manga. Goku, despite appearing in a number of video games, will never be in Smash because he was originally from a manga. The same rules apply here. If we start loosening our definition of an anime crossover game and start saying that series that have anime adaptations despite not originating from an anime or a manga, then everything would start to count as an anime crossover game. Smash Bros would then technically count as an anime crossover game because Animal Crossing, Final Fantasy, Mario, Splatoon all have anime or manga adaptations. Hell, Sonic the Fighters would then count because of the Sonic X anime. All this to say, stop putting DreamMix TV World Fighters on your anime crossover game lists. DreamMix TV World Fighters is a platform fighter released on the GameCube and PS2 exclusively in Japan on December 18th, 2003. It features characters from Hudson and Konami video games as well as Takara toy lines. And just because this game features Optimus Prime and some kid from Beyblade who happen to be in anime adaptations doesn't mean that this game is an anime game crossover. Transformers and Beyblades were toys before there were anime. Despite this, I have seen multiple game journalists put this game on their anime crossover games lists. It doesn't count, damn it. While we're having this conversation, let's take a look at some other anime crossover games that skirt the gray area for what constitutes as an anime crossover game. Nendoroid Generation is a PSP game released exclusively in Japan on February 23rd, 2012. It's an RPG based on Good Smile Company's Nendoroid line of anime figures. It features a number of different characters from across various anime, manga, visual novel, and video game series, all in the signature Nendoroid art style. This includes series like Black Rock Shooter, Face Day Night, and The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. Despite this technically being a video game based on a toy line, I'd consider it an anime crossover game because the toy line is not the origin for the series that are crossing over. The toy line exists as a unifying art style, not the original source of these characters. I actually think it's a pretty clever way to cross over multiple series and still maintain a consistent art style. So take that, DreamMix TV World Fighters. Nitroplus Blasterz Heroines Infinite Duel is a 2D fighting game released in Japanese arcades on April 30, 2015, followed up by home console releases worldwide by 2016. Nitroplus falls into a gray area here, where all the playable characters originated from a visual novel series, a video game series, or just simply as a Nitroplus property. There are characters here who have gotten anime adaptations, such as Super Sonico and Saber from Fate Zero, which technically, this is the Fate Zero incarnate of Saber, which was originally a light novel, so we could use Saber as justification that this is an anime and manga crossover, because I personally do count light novel crossovers as anime crossovers. Now you might be asking, why do I count light novels, but not visual novels? Well, to me, light novels exist in the same realm as manga. They're more often than not published by the same publishers, and they exist in the same medium as manga. Both are written stories. Whereas visual novels are technically video games. Hell, visual novel characters, at least to me, are more video game character than they are anime character. I count manga and anime crossovers as synonymous because more often than not, you can't have one without the other. And looking at the most mainstream crossovers such as the Weekly Shonen Jump games from before, publishers count them as synonymous too. Weekly Shonen Jump is a manga publication. Technically, Jump Force is a manga crossover. It's just easier to say anime crossover because more audiences know the anime rather than the manga. So, point being, Visual novels are close enough to manga, and manga obviously counts as anime crossovers. But, all of that being said, there are support characters from anime original series that Nitroplus writers worked on, such as Psychopaths and Expelled from Paradise. So,
I'll give it a pass.
Let's get one more example of a game I would not count, that being Phantom Breaker Omnia. This game is barely even a crossover to begin with. It features largely an original cast originating from its predecessor Phantom Break, but does feature two characters from the science adventure series, that being Makise Kurisu from Steins Gate and Rimi Sakihara from Chaos Head. Yes, both of these series have anime adaptations, but like I said before, these are visual novels first, they're also only guest characters, so there's even less justification for this to count.
This one does not get a pass from me. Anyways, moving on from this detour, let's get back to some more publication-specific anime crossover games.
Sunday vs. Magazine Shuketsu Chojo Daikisen is going to be our closest equivalent to a Shonen Jump crossover game from a competing manga publication. It's a 2D fighting game released on the PSP exclusively in Japan on March 26, 2009. It brings together characters from Weekly Shonen Sunday and Weekly Shonen Magazine. It was released to celebrate the 50th anniversary of both magazines. It features 22 different series with 30 playable characters, 15 for each magazine. Although the gameplay isn't really anything to write home about, it's an okay enough 2D fighter on the PSP, it's got a great selection of characters, it falls more in line with the DS Jump games as being a pretty good celebration of the included publication's history. Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax is a 2D arcade fighting game released first in arcades in Japan on March 18, 2014, then on home consoles worldwide by 2015. This game celebrates the 20th anniversary of Asi Media Works' Dengeki Bunko imprint of light novels, featuring characters like Kirito from Sword Art Online and Mikoto Misaka from Magical Index. There's 19 playable characters and 30 assist characters from 26 different series. And like I discussed before, I'd count this one as an anime crossover game, despite almost all of these characters debuting from light novels. What's also pretty cool about this game is that it was published by Sega and features a number of Sega-themed stages, such as Green Hill Zone from Sonic, as well as guest fighters Akira Yuki from Virtua Fighter and Sylvaria Bless from Valkyria Chronicles.
As we near the end of our venture through the world of anime crossover games, there are a couple of other titles I'd like to talk about that don't fit the mold of publication celebration quite so cleanly.
Tatsunoko vs. Capcom is a 2D fighting game released first in arcades in Japan in December 2008, then on the Wii worldwide by 2010. It's a crossover between Capcom franchises and Tatsunoko Productions anime series. It was originally meant to be a fighting game involving just the Tatsunoko anime characters, but producers at Capcom argued that the characters would be better suited for a Capcom vs. game, hence Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. There were multiple versions of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom released between the arcades and two home console releases, but the definitive release, Ultimate All-Stars, includes 26 different characters with 13 characters from each brand, and 9 series represented from each. I always thought that this was a cool release. Admittedly, I'm not a fan of any of these Tatsunoko series, but the Capcom vs concept has always been pretty cool. Getting to see Capcom characters cross over with obscure anime characters is pretty neat.
And finally, I can't talk about anime crossover games without talking about the longest running anime crossover series.
The Super Robot Wars series began with Super Robot Wars on the Game Boy on April 20th, 1991. Since then, the series has gotten over 60 games between mainline entries and spin-offs. It's even won a Guinness World Record for featuring the most IP licenses in an RPG series, with 274 unique licenses. Of course, licensing is already a pain in the ass, so the series isn't free from its own licensing problems. Many entries have been Japanese exclusive releases for this point exactly, with international licensing being more expensive and difficult than just releasing exclusively in Japan. Especially since the Super Robot Wars series isn't tied to one publication, one brand, one series. No, it features a plethora of different mecha series from across publications. A large chunk of the characters represented do fall under franchises that Bandai already owns, such as Gundam, but since Bandai is also responsible for the Gunpla behind a lot of the included mecha series, they have good working relationships with these franchises. It really is astonishing how they've been able to continue releasing new games for over 30 years now. I won't get too deep into the series as it requires its own travel guide, but it's certainly worth checking out if you're a mecha fan.
And that about wraps up our journey through the world of anime crossover games.
A lot of anime characters and series have been finding themselves as guest characters in a number of other games such as Fortnite. Fortnite now has skins from over 10 different anime series available to purchase. Some of these series even came along with special in-game events with limited time weapons and items. Other games have been doing the same thing too, like with Call of Duty and Overwatch. I imagine this is a much easier task to undertake than developing a crossover game from the ground up. With that, the publisher, say Bandai Namco, needs to secure the licensing rights for every single represented series. Whereas with an in-game crossover, Fortnite only has to get permission from, say, the Naruto rights holders. It's easier for the developers and publishers to pull off.
Just gonna slowly back away. And that finally brings our journey to right.
Mobile games also exist. Shonen Jump has put out a good number of mobile crossover games. Most of them are what you would expect from a mobile gacha anime game. Some turn out pretty cool from time to time, like the Shonen Jump Smash clone, or bring together series you wouldn't really expect, like Isekai Isekai, which rather than focusing on one publication, focuses on the isekai genre as a whole. Most of these games do end up getting shut down though,
and more often than not, fall into obscurity, to be forgotten, and never played again.
So where does that leave us? I'm sure the Super Robot Wars series will continue to go on strong, but I doubt we'll see many publication-based crossover games anytime soon. Do I think Shonen Jump will show up for another crossover game? I think it's certainly possible. Will it be Jump Force 2? If they know it's good for them, then it definitely won't be. But then again, it did celebrate its 55th anniversary in 2023 with no console game. Maybe for its 60th in 2028?
With the increase of guest characters and other live service games, I just don't know. I guess only time will tell. This has been Dr. Johnathan Bandai Namco signing off, and I'll see you in the next adventure.